Oh, good, John.
We should start. Just she said presentation underneath the laptop. Speakers.
Oh, yeah. You don't have a safety first. Ready? Good afternoon. This hearing is on the water rate proposal to the New York City Water Board for fiscal year 2015. My name is Mario Bruno, and I will be the hearing officer for this meeting. Let me begin by talking about how this meeting will proceed. I would like to note that we place certain documents into the official record that pertain to public notices listing these hearings. The notice designating the hearing officer, the draft of the proposed water and wastewater rate schedule, the public information booklet regarding the water and wastewater rates, a copy of which is available up front, and also written statements. They are marked Exhibits 1 through 4. After I introduce the members of the New York City Water Board, we will hear a presentation from DEP Commissioner Emily Lloyd on the water rate proposal, and then we will open the meeting to the floor in order to hear from the public. If you have not yet signed up to speak, please take the time during the presentation to do so. There are sign-in sheets at the front table where you walked in. You can also submit written testimony to the New York City Water Board from today up until the close of business on May 20th, 2014 at 5 p.m. These statements will be entered into the record and copies distributed to the Water Board members prior to any votes. I will now introduce the members of the dais that are here with us today. Water Board members Alfonso Carney and Jonathan Golden, and Stephen Loritz, Executive Director. Board Member Carney, do you have anything to add before we begin?
Thank you. Just a few brief things. First of all, at this point of the proceeding, our chairman, Alan Moss, would normally offer comments. Alan is unable to be here today, has asked me to speak in his stead very, very briefly. The most important thing that happens at these hearings is that we take comments and questions from the public. We want to thank those of you who have come to offer your points of view for coming here today. There are a lot of other places you could have been, a lot of other things you could be doing, I'm sure. We're pleased that you decided to do this. Understand that no one who sits on this board has made up his or her mind as to what the ultimate decision will be. The objective is to hear your questions and later to read the testimony, the transcripts of the testimony that you give here, and questions you ask here, so that we can then duly consider those things in making up our minds. So we have open minds, and we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say. You've already heard that you're likely to hear from two people this afternoon. You're certainly going to hear from the Commissioner for the presentation. You're then going to hear from the Commissioner and from Stephen, depending entirely on how you all ask your questions and what questions you have. This is the third of 5 borough hearings that we will have. We were in Brooklyn night before last, the Bronx yesterday, and of course here in Manhattan. We have 2 hearings next week, and then the rate adoption hearing is the end of next week. Just for your information, for those of you who don't know, the Water Board may have as many as 7 members. We are currently at 5 members. We are appointed by the mayor. We receive no salary. And we like to think that we serve the people of the city of New York well. And with that, Commissioner Lloyd.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and thank you for attending. And we have a presentation. This is essentially the material we have presented to the Water Board in proposing a rate for the coming year. And it also includes just some updates on the work of DEP, because once a year we come out for these hearings, and it's an opportunity also to present what some of the money collected as part of the rates is being spent on. So first of all, the rate we're proposing for fiscal year 2015 is 3.35%. This is the lowest rate since 2006, which we are pleased about. And we usually focus on the average annual single-family charge, and because that's something that gives us a comparison year to year. And the increase for fiscal year 15 would amount to a $33 increase for a single-family home, and you can see what it would mean for other types of building as well there. Last year at this time, when we projected what we thought we would need to recommend for 2015 as a rate proposal, we had thought that it would be as high as 7.8%. We are able to propose a rate lower than that for several reasons. I'll mention some of them. First of all, the new administration is returning 10% of the rental payment to the water system. That's about $22 million that we had not anticipated. Our revenues have been strong this year, about $159 million ahead of the plan, and we think this is significantly because of the near completion of installation of wireless meter reading. We've also benefited from low interest rates in our borrowing, which has saved us about $153 million against what we had anticipated paying. We also, in our negotiations with our regulators, have been able to defer or avoid some costs. One example is postponing the proposed cover for Hillview Reservoir, which will be very expensive. We have been making a case that that's not necessary. We will still, we think, eventually be required to do it, but not in the immediate future. And we have also been substituting, in some locations, green infrastructure for more expensive gray infrastructure. That is to say, ways of capturing stormwater naturally rather than through pipes and pumps to put it through treatment. We've also been undergoing work to reduce our operating costs and have accomplished some cost savings of about $34 million around particular areas such as the cost of chemicals and of energy. While we understand that everyone would like to see no increase, we do like to point out we work very hard to keep the increase, to keep the rate as low as we can, and to keep increases as low as we can. If you compare the cost of water compared to other typical costs that someone in New York City has to pay, apartment rental or a mortgage or their electricity or heating oil, for example, at only 0.5% above the national average, we are less above the national average than any of these other typical costs. And similarly, the water rate is right at or 0.5% above the national average in a city where it is typically more expensive to do business than in other places in this country. And some of the increases we've seen over recent years have been very significantly driven by coming into compliance with the Clean Water Act and the Safe Drinking Water Act, and has affected all cities across the country to some degree, and having to make very significant investments in their infrastructure, both for drinking water and wastewater. And our increases over the past 15 years have been right in the middle of that range. We've also been focusing on the past few years of trying to improve the delivery of our service to our customers. One thing that we've done is to install automated meter reading, and that has resulted in an 80% reduction in estimated bills. because people don't have to be at home to let us in to collect the information about the water that they're using. And it's also produced a 49% reduction in billing disputes since 2011, which we're very pleased about. We also now have a leak notification program because we're able to track water use so much more closely, and 204,000 of our customers have enrolled in that. To date, we've sent 50,000 notifications to people letting them know that there's been a spike in their water use, which enables them to look at what the problem is and see if it's just an unusual use for some reason or if they have a problem such as a leak. And we have also offered now through an insurer service line protection. One of the significant unexpected costs that building owners encounter from time to time is the failure of either the water line running from the street to the building or the sewer line running out. These are the responsibility of the building owner, and many of them are very old in New York City, and when they fail, it's an unanticipated cost for the building owner that can be thousands of dollars. So this service line protection program, we think, offers an ability to have some protection against a large unexpected cost. We have been focused on trying to improve the efficiency of the services that we offer in terms of managing the system, and have made some strides in the right direction. Compared to last year, leak complaint resolution is 9.5% faster. Time to restore the water after a water main break is 7% faster. Sewer backup complaints are down 30%, and catch basin complaints are down 30%. These are all things that are tracked in the Mayor's Management Report, and you can see online. We've also been very engaged in the conversation about resiliency and how to protect the drinking water and wastewater system from climate change, and have participated in looking at a risk assessment that's been going on for several years. We presented some key initiatives in a stronger, more resilient New York that was published by the city last year that include reducing combined sewer overflows using both green and gray infrastructure, such as additional storm sewers and blue belts, and developing cogeneration facilities at the North River wastewater treatment plant, which allows us to reuse the methane gas that is produced by the treatment of the wastewater. We published a wastewater resiliency plan in 2013, looking at protective measures for the wastewater system. It's very vulnerable, obviously, because it's placed in low-lying areas to capture stormwater as well as sewage, and the wastewater treatment plants, by definition, are at the water's edge, and came up with about $300 million, which is in our long-term budget, to make changes that we think would protect us from over $1 billion worth of damage if we didn't make those changes. We've also committed to develop a wastewater facility design set of standards for storm surge and sea level rise that we will be codifying and designing to in the future. Just to mention some of the big projects, and we'll be looking at the debt service associated with those and its effect on the rate in a minute, but we are coming to the end of several very big projects that were required to come into compliance with the law. One being the Catskill, Delaware ultraviolet light disinfection facility. We're required to have two means of disinfection of drinking water. One is chlorination, the second is UV. Cat Del water is 90% of our water. Actually, at the moment, it's 100% of our water. So it's very important that that be in compliance, and that is now complete and operating. We are also continuing to build out City Water Tunnel number 3. People often say this is the biggest unseen project in the city. You will never see it because it's entirely underground, but it will allow us to take, when it is completed, Water Tunnel 1, which has been in continuous operation since 1917, take it offline for inspection, and we know repairs. We know that there are leaks, we know that there are probably other problems. It's a piece of infrastructure that's been operating for 100 years without a pause. So we were very eager. This is a project that was started in 1973. I think there's never not been a consensus that it was very important for us to get this in place. We have a second water tunnel that went into use in 1937, also has been in continuous use. So the long-term goal is to be able to take one of those out of use periodically for inspection and repairs. We are also have completed the Newtown Creek wastewater treatment plant. That's the city's largest treatment plant. Took us a very long time to build that while keeping the old plant in operation, but is now complete and operating, and also because it's our only wastewater treatment plant that was designed to be open to the public so it could be used as a place for education. It is now very heavily in use by school groups and others who come in to see how a wastewater treatment plant actually works. We are also close to having into operation the Croton filtration plant. New York City is one of only 5 cities in the country that has been allowed not to filter most of its water. The rest of Hudson water, which is 90% of our water, is kept clean by our having acquired, or the state having acquired, or other organizations like the Trust for Public Land having acquired the land to protect it from development. We also have many regulations up there that govern the uses of the land that feed the watershed that goes into the reservoirs. But 10% of our water comes from the old Croton system east of the Hudson, which is in a much more densely developed area, and so does not meet the standards to avoid filtration. So we did have to, in order to keep that water available to us for use, we had to build a filtration plant. That was an enormous project, and it is nearing completion. It will allow us at maximum capacity to feed about 290 million gallons a day of the almost 1 billion gallons a day used by New York City. The testing for the one half of it, Plant A, started in December. The testing for Plant B will begin in the summer, and we hope to have it up and operating in 2015. This is a very critical part of the water infrastructure, both to withstand what we anticipate will be more severe droughts in the future, but also to allow us to take the Delaware Aqueduct offline in the future. That's another aqueduct that needs repair, and I'll talk about that next. We've known for about 20 years that the Delaware Aqueduct, which carries about 50% of our water, and this is the best water in the system, has been leaking and developing more leaks. It's created a lot of problems upstate through surface expressions of this. And it also has told us that the aqueduct itself is at risk. We spent a lot of time exploring it, trying to figure out the best way to repair it. Finally, we've come up with a plan, and that construction project to repair the aqueduct is now beginning. We are doing the final design work for a bypass tunnel. We've started shaft construction to get down there to do that construction of the bypass. It will also be another part of it for when we take it offline, will be that the Catskill Aqueduct, which carries about 40% of the city's water, will have to carry more. So optimizing that aqueduct through cleaning and repairs is also being planned currently. And we are doing very aggressive water conservation programs, both in New York City and in the upstate communities that use this water, so that when we shut down Delaware, we will have enough water. We anticipate that shutdown will be in 2021. I wanted to mention a couple of projects in Manhattan. A big project has been the Ward's Island final settling tanks. This is a state of good repair project to reconstruct the final settling tanks that improves the wastewater treatment process. This is again about compliance with the Clean Water Act. And we are also doing a project that we think is very important in terms of sustainability, which is to take the methane gas that is created by treating the water and to use it for actually operating the plant. And this first cogen plant is going in at the North River plant. It will upgrade the electrical systems and put energy efficient technology in place there, and we expect it to be completed in 2020. In 2015, we are projecting some changes in our operations and maintenance that will save us money against what we had originally projected we would need in that year. There are 81 initiatives that we've identified. They include savings of $12 million from the way we do our staffing, particularly around shift assignments at wastewater facilities and up in the watershed. About $11 million from renegotiating our chemical contracts and modifying exactly how we use those chemicals. About $8 million from wastewater treatment process improvements, particularly by dewatering more, thickening the sludge, which means there's less cost associated with disposing of the sludge. Despite those cost savings, there are also some increases in the budget. The two most significant items are $13 million for the Water for the Future conservation initiatives. That's to reduce the water use against that shutdown of the Delaware Tunnel in 2021, and also to be available to use during anticipated droughts in the future. And that includes projects, particularly low-flow fixtures in public schools and CUNY facilities and in Parks Department recreation centers. We've also had an increase in our real estate taxes outside the city of New York, where we have facilities we were required to pay taxes, and those will increase about $5 million in 2015. Going back to what I said earlier about the very large capital projects, the thing that most significantly drives the water rates, the single largest factor, is the debt service. And that is very significantly driven, not only, but very significantly driven by the need to stay in compliance with federal law. So if you look back over the past 10 years or so, you can see with the black bar, the amount of capital investment, the amount of borrowing we had to do around compliance projects. We refer to them as mandates. And that also very much constrained other things we were able to do that we needed to do, like building out storm sewers where there aren't any in parts of southern Queens and Brooklyn. We weren't able to do that much of that. And what we were spending had a significant impact on the water rates because our borrowing increased. You can see going forward that the mandates, which are in, I guess that's lavender, mauve, are smaller in the coming years, and that's a very good thing, but we now have to play catch up on some of the other things that we did not spend money on when our mandated costs were so high. And then we always have to say, because there are always new and more stringent regulations as people think more about water quality, that we always anticipate there will be additional mandates in the future that we may have to meet. So these projections are based on existing regulation. Again, looking at the debt service, that red line is the debt service in the first years after this current structure for financing the water system was put in place. We were spending less than $500 million a year in capital costs. As the regulations came into effect and we came into compliance with them, I hate to say this, but not always voluntarily, but the reason we were reluctant was largely because we knew the effect it would have on the rates. The borrowing has gone up so that now we are typically doing a capital program of something like $2 billion a year. And because the debt we are retiring after typically 30 years is $500 million, and what we are adding is $2 billion, those rates do continue to go up, and that's that red line. You can see our commitments, which is the amount of money that we commit to spend on a project each year, and then that's followed with the blue line, which is the actual paying out of the money to the people who do the work. Those go down a little bit, up again a little bit in 15, but generally are on a downward trend now until we have any new regulations. But for a while, at least, the debt service will continue to increase. Focusing on 2015 and exactly how we put together the proposed rate increase that we bring to the Water Board and present to the public. We see our need for 2015 it to be $3,596 million. About 45% of that is debt service. The second is operations and maintenance, which I talked about in a little bit of detail. And if you look at the column, which is the second from the left, where it says fiscal year 15, you can see the amount of the debt service, the amount we are investing to pay down some of that debt, operations and maintenance, our rental payment to the city, and it comes to the number you see at the top of the page, $3,596,000. Then in addition, we always set aside cash on hand. The minimum over the years has been 15%. Because of climate change and some of the catastrophic things that we've had to address in recent years, we are trying to build that up to be closer to 25%. When something like Sandy happens and many of our wastewater treatment plants are disabled, we can't say, well, let's hire somebody next year, let's put it in the rate next year and go out and fix it. We have to fix it right away. A few years ago after Katrina, we reassessed all of our dams upstate and identified one dam that we felt might not withstand a superstorm. We had to go in immediately and deal with that, and it was a several $100 million undertaking. So we put cash at hand. When we don't spend it, we roll it over to pay against the financial need of the next year. So you'll see at the bottom of the left-hand column, that's $696 million we did not spend. You will see that on the next page. We will apply that to our financial need for next year. And that goes into estimating what the water rate we feel should be. This year, we have it at 23%, that's $818 million. That gives us a total financial need of $4,414 million. And then this discussion carries over to the next page. So again, you'll see fiscal year 15 at the very top, $4,414 million. We don't have to get all of that from the water rates we charge to people who use the water in the city. We have that carry, that $696 million of cash at hand that we did not use last year. That goes against the financial need for fiscal year 14. In addition, we charge rates to people upstate, to communities upstate that use our water, and that will bring in an additional $206 million. So we are then left with the need to raise $3,512 million. So then we ask ourselves, all right, what is the water rate we need to charge to do that? What is the rate based on how much water is likely to get used in the coming year? Our revenue last year, using the current rate for fiscal year 14, was $3,475 million. However, in the coming year, we expect there to be about a 1.5% decrease in use. That's significantly because of low flow fixtures that people are increasingly, they're getting better and people are putting them in some cases because of the requirements. When you do new building, you are required to do low flow. Because remember, we're always, even though we have enough water upstate now, we are anticipating droughts. That's not new with climate change. There have always been periodic severe droughts. And we are also anticipating being ready to shut down the Delaware Aqueduct. You can't get everybody to reduce their water use in 6 months, so we're doing it long-term now. We expect that to reduce by 1.5% the water use. That will be a reduction in revenue of about $77 million at the old rate. So if we kept the same rate as we have in fiscal year 14, that would yield $3,398 million. If you go back to the second column at the top of the page under 2015, our revenue need is $3,512. That leaves us an additional $114 million we have to raise. In order to do that, we need to increase the rate, and the amount we need to increase it for the amount of water we expected to be used is 3.35%. So that's how we how we construct what the rate increase is that we are going to propose to the water board. Just a word about the rental payment. We pay the City of New York a rental payment that's based on, calculated at 15% of the annual debt service. Almost every city in the country pays, almost every water utility in the country pays their host city something. It's structured many different ways. Sometimes it's a fee for services, sometimes it's payment in lieu of taxes or pilots. but almost everybody does, and we're sort of right in the middle in terms of the range of what typically a water utility pays its host city. 3 years ago, because it was calculated on the debt service, and that was going up because of the big investments we've made in the mandated projects, we made an agreement with the city that they would cap our rental payment for a few years, so it wouldn't keep going up. And so they did cap it, and you'll see that under total residual payment to be returned. We are still under that agreement, and that was going to return us $14 million, which it still will. We pay the rent, and then we get it back. We get this payment back the next year. In addition, the new administration wanted to start returning some of this rental payment to the water system. So they said that they would want to put in their budget that they would give an additional 10% of the payment we make this year back to us next year. So that's that yellow line, $22 million. There are some other changes that we are making this year that we hope will be of assistance to our customers, particularly because all of us are aware that there are more people in New York City who are having a harder time financially perhaps than there were 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So we are beginning something called the Home Water Assistance Program. It's patterned on the Home Energy Assistance Program, and the way it will work is that the Human Resources Administration has a set of guidelines for identifying homeowners who need assistance in paying their heating bill. They will use exactly the same criteria to identify homeowners, and they will then receive assistance in paying their water bill. They will get a credit, which we will get from the city against their bill. We think that this will apply to about 18,000 customers. About 75% of those customers are single-family homeowners, and we think about 61% of them will be 60 years old or older. In addition, we are expanding our leak forgiveness program. Heretofore, our leak forgiveness program went only to leaks that you couldn't see. So if you had a leak in your water line going from the water main to your house or behind the wall, and you came in and you saw your water bill go up because of that leak and came in and showed us that you had gotten it fixed, we would forgive the cost of that leak. We never applied it to toilets and faucets because we thought, you can see your toilet and faucet, you should know if there's a leak. However, in fact, frequently and anecdotally frequently, for example, with older homeowners who may have, their kids have moved out, they have a bathroom that's not used very much anymore, they sometimes get leaks that go on for a while and they're caught unawares by it. About 25% of the inquiries we get about problems with the bill are about leaks having to do with faucets and toilets. So we are now expanding that program to deal with that. We think it will be helpful to our customers. We think it will get a whole bunch of processes for looking at these things out of the pipeline, and it will not be enormously expensive. It also will encourage people, because they have to do it within a certain amount of time, to get it fixed fast, which again goes to water conservation. We want them to get this fixed quickly. We want people to be motivated to do that. In addition, for the first time, we are going to freeze the minimum charge. Customers who use about 100 gallons a day or less, that's about a third of a typical single-family home, receive what's called a minimum bill. 42% of people receiving minimum bills are 1 or 3 family homeowners, and before that has always gone up every time the water rate went up. This year, for the first time, we are going to cap that for this year and hold it constant. The service line protection program I mentioned earlier, this is something we negotiated with a service provider so that people could have insurance against a very expensive repair of a service line. It only happens every 150 years or so, probably, but if it happens to you while you're owning your house, it could be a $10,000 or $15,000 totally unexpected expense. Most people are completely surprised when this happens. We've got a really good response to this. 141,000 homeowners or eligible customers, building owners, have already signed up. They continue to sign up at a very steady rate. This is the year, every now and then, either on the water side or the sewer side, the provider is allowed to increase the rate based on the Bureau of Labor Statistics Plumbing Producer Price Index. This is a year when they can do that. It's about a 6% increase, which will be which will take it to $8.47 a month. But since it's only the sewer, not the water, it evens out to about a 3.8% increase in that coverage. You're not required to have it. It's optional. And the other change that's happened just this past year is that sales tax is not being charged for this, so that will offset that increase to some degree. Some additional things, we've extended the deadline for filing an appeal from 30 days to 60 days to give people more time to collect whatever documentation they want to submit. We are now going to halt the lien sale process for customers if they have filed an appeal heretofore, whether or not you had an appeal pending. We started the lien sale process. We are going to now hold out people who are in appeal so that they will not feel pressured to settle the appeal, perhaps, even though they still feel that the appeal is justified because they want to avoid the lien sale. That seems fairer. And when customers have automated meter reading installed, sometimes because they've had estimated bills for a long time, there's a catch-up bill because that's the first time we read the meter in a long time if we haven't been able to get into the home. So we are going to make it possible for people to request a 90-day interest-free before they have to pay their bills, so they'll have some time to do that catch-up. The last piece of this is two things about multifamily conservation programs. For a very long time, multifamily buildings built for units or more were on frontage. They were charged a flat fee. Many years ago, all homes were charged a flat fee. And a few years ago, when we put in automated meter reading, we said that everyone had to have a meter, but they could continue to use a frontage fee if they got the meter in and if they installed the low-flow fixtures. The date for the low-flow fixtures was 2015. The date for the meter was 16, or maybe I have it the wrong way around. One of those. They were out of sync. Now they will be in sync. They will both be June 30th, 2016. So if they're having that work done, they can have it all done at the same time. We are also reinstating a program that we had a few years ago, a toilet voucher program for building owners in the multifamily conservation program so that they can help get those low-flow fixtures. There will be a voucher of $125 per fixture. They'll have to provide documentation, but this is to help people get those fixtures in place. So coming back again to the basic proposal, which is 3.35%, and that's the end of the presentation, and I'll turn it back to Mario. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Before we move to the public comments, I just want to recognize that Board Member Adam Freed has joined us for this hearing. Now we're going to open the floor to comments from the public. Speakers will be called up in order that they are listed on the sign-in sheet. If you wish to speak and you have not yet signed up, please do so now. I'd like to call on our first speaker listed here, Jim Buckley.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jim Buckley. I'm the director of the University Neighborhood Housing Program. We're a nonprofit community organization in the Bronx. At UNHP, we work with tenant and community organizations in the Bronx. We have a long history of working with DEP to try to reduce water use, maintain affordability in the buildings with which we work, to solve billing problems. I'm pleased to say we have a good relationship with DEP staff, with I think you're Deputy Commissioner, Commissioner Singleton, and you know, we've had a great working relationship on that. I'd like to think that the DEP staff would feel that way as well. We also have a long history of testifying at these hearings, and we're more hopeful actually, I'm more hopeful. Feeling like I'm the Pope here. We're more hopeful. I'm more hopeful than I've been in many years that city government is hearing the concerns about water costs, impact on the affordability for New Yorkers. Some of the proposals that you're considering today that the commissioner just talked about, the rebate on the rental payment that the mayor has talked about, I really feed that optimism on my part and some of the people with which I work. We are hoping that the Water Board will work with us to make this set of rate hearings the beginning of a process that results in a more equitable approach to setting water rates. I'd say I've tormented some of you with sending mail directly to you as Water Board members even before these hearings, in part because of our concern about I guess, long-term memory about the impact of water rates on affordable housing. There's a long history to the multifamily conservation program that you know, I'm assuming people are familiar with, but that's a very valuable program to us, even though I am going to criticize it in a second. Water cost impact. Some of the backup in the DEP Blue Book for the rate proposal minimize the impact of the cost of water. It compares water to other consumer costs and shows New York's water charges in the middle of the pack when you look at a wide range of cities across the country. I guess because we're a local neighborhood-based community organization, we're inclined to look at the impact on more of a neighborhood-by-neighborhood basis. And when you do that, it helps you realize that the cost of water has a major impact in neighborhoods with lower incomes. For example, using 2013 data, the cost of water was 1.6% of the area median income for the city of New York as a whole, but 3.5% of the area median income in the Fordham area, and a little over 4% of the area median income in the Morrisania section of the Bronx. The Blue Book also indicates that the average multifamily meter charge with the proposed increase will be $666 per apartment per year, and the new multifamily conservation program will be $976 per apartment per year. Most of the buildings with which UNHP works are composed of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. Many of those buildings are in the multifamily conservation program, and we would be in deep trouble if we didn't have the ability to cap the rate. However, even the buildings that are not in the multifamily conservation program are paying in excess of the DEP average of $666 per apartment per year. In short, the average does not reflect the reality of the cost of water in the large volume of affordable housing composed of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments which are providing critically needed housing to lower income families. We need the multifamily conservation program, but we also would need a lower cap, frankly, to bring it closer to the average in the DEP book. We urge the Water Board to revisit the multifamily conservation program to lower the capped per apartment number. Finally, one needs to look, sorry, I lost my place. One needs to look at the overall cumulative effect of the rate increases as you look at them. I have a hard time in terms of thinking of percentages and in terms of impact on affordability. But when I look at what it cost in the Blue Book, if I spent $100 on water in 2005 or before 2005 with the rate increases for the same amount of water right now with the 3.35%, I'd be spending $246 for the same amount of water. And I think it's important for people to remember that. Finally, the rate increase proposal, an increase of 3.35% is better than the 7.8% that have been projected. It's definitely better than the increases we've experienced in recent years. Still, I oppose any increase and urge the board to review the Water Board's financials to eliminate the need for an increase this year. The cost of water has risen dramatically over time and is hitting affordable housing and lower income homeowners very hard. In the multifamily buildings with which we work, the cost of water is running approximately 15% of the operating costs. Many of these buildings are already in the multifamily program. As more rental income goes into water charges, there's less available for repairs and debt service to cover capital needs. Oh, time's up, huh? I've got a written testimony here, so I've got one more paragraph, but I can leave this with you. Finished? Okay.
Please.
Oh, thank you. Water rates cannot be viewed in isolation. Water costs must be viewed as part of the overall economic health of New Yorkers. The importance of the revising the formula is even greater when you look at the rate increases projected in the years ahead as part of the Water Finance Authority bond backup. We call on the Water Board to take a fresh look at how rates are set to develop a more equitable water rate setting formula. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Butler.
Leave the copies.
Next on the list to speak is Matthew Frank. Okay. Next, we have Mr. Eric Goldstein from the Natural Resources Defense Council.
Good afternoon. It's great to welcome back Commissioner Lloyd. My name is Eric Goldstein with the Natural Resources Defense Council. As many of you know, NRDC is a national nonprofit group that's been active on drinking water issues for many years. I'll summarize our written comments today. In sum, NRDC supports the overall thrust of this proposal, and in particular the proposed 3.35 water rate increase, but we believe further steps can and must be taken to restructure wastewater and stormwater charges so as to implement a more rational pricing mechanism to control stormwater runoff. For starters, we support the 3.35% water rate increase, which the department correctly notes is the lowest in 9 years. Even with such an increase, the New York City average residential charge would be just about $38 more than the annual rate paid by residents in the 30 largest cities around the country. And that $38 is comparing FY proposed costs to existing FY14 costs in other cities. So in other words, we're about at the average rate, and the quality, the taste, and the reliability of New York City system is certainly better than most, if not almost all of those other systems. Our support of this rate increase is based on the assumption that this rate increase will be the springboard for a new thinking about water rate increases in the de Blasio administration, and that rate increases of not more than 2 to 3% will continue for the rest of this administration. Of course, we prefer no rate increase whatsoever, since we're well aware of the significant increases that have taken place in the previous decade, and we're sensitive to the regressive nature of water rates and how they hit those least able to afford it here in New York City. Nevertheless, we're convinced that the major capital expenditures that our water rates have made possible are necessary and indispensable for the city. Let's take a look at them, and you've seen them set forth by the commissioner, so I'll just mention them. The third water tunnel, the world's largest ultraviolet plant, the Croton filtration plant, upgrading of the Newtown Reade sewage treatment plant, construction of the Delaware Aqueduct bypass, the Catskill-Delaware Watershed Protection Program, green infrastructure initiatives, and unheralded construction keeping 6,000 miles of mains and tunnels, 19 dams, and 14 sewage plants in a state of good repair. This is an unprecedented investment by the department in the future of New York City, and it's one that's not well understood by most New Yorkers. We do wish, however, that rather than describing some of these projects as unfunded mandates from regulators, that DEP would talk with more pride about these initiatives and help educate the public regarding the rationale for them and the multiple benefits they provide. There are certain elements we particularly love: freeze on the minimum charge for customers using less than 100 gallons a day, the creation of the Home Water Assistance Program, the city's ongoing efforts to defer the $1.6 billion expenditure for a cover over Hillview are just three of them. Our biggest concern is in the entire package is with the lack of progress in reforming wastewater and stormwater charges so as to incentivize better control of stormwater runoff. The current proposal continues as a rate structure of wastewater and stormwater as a single fee, 159% of the metered water charge. While this approach is sensible for wastewater, it's wholly irrational and inequitable for stormwater, since metered water usage bears no relationship to the volume of stormwater runoff from a customer's property. 6 years ago, in June 2008, the Water Board directed DEP to complete a study of rate restructuring that would include a conversion to parcel-based billing for stormwater. In other words, basing the stormwater charge on the contribution that a customer's property added to DEP's cost of managing stormwater runoff. This would more equitably allocate the estimated 10 to 20% of DEP's annual expenses attributable to stormwater management. DEP completed that rate study. They initiated a pilot project to stormwater management charges, to assess a stormwater management charge for standalone parking lots, but no further reforms have been proposed. The Water Board should not approve the flat 159% wastewater stormwater charge without sending the DEP an unambiguous message that DEP must develop a plan for full implementation of a more equitable stormwater fee system for FY 2016. several final points. One, we strongly support the DEP's phase out of frontage billing, but the transition of multifamily properties into multifamily conservation programs, while heading in the right direction, still doesn't provide a sufficient financial incentive for maximum water efficiency. So, we oppose the provision set forth in this proposal that would extend all the way to June 2016, the deadline for replacing washing machines with Energy Star appliances. We strongly support the $125 per fixture toilet rebate program, and we urge that it be extended and expanded beyond the multifamily conservation program customers to all who wish to participate. Finally, we continue to believe that the rental payments should be eliminated from the city water rate structure, since this is a regressive charge that disproportionately impacts those least able to afford it. We hope that those rental payments continue to be phased out in the future, and we encourage the department to explore additional ways to reduce costs in the coming year. The change of administrations is a good time to step back and undertake a complete review of the agency's many consulting contracts, for example, with an eye to reducing costs. We also encourage DEP to consider options for generating additional income, but we'll save that for another day. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein.
I would
The next speaker on our list is Josh Levy.
Hi there. Thank you, Commissioner, Madam Commissioner, members of the board. I have no particular affiliation. I'm a New York City resident and taxpayer. I went to the rate proposal meeting that took place a few weeks ago, and I sat and listened to the entire presentation with great interest. I'm not in favor of this increase. If anything, in light of the outrageous increases that we all endured during some of the most trying times in America's national history, during the years of 2007 to 2013, there really should be a decrease. You guys had your rate increase, and you got your additional money, and you had quote-unquote mandates at the time. Fine, but those were in the past, and I believe that the time is right to, just because you had increases in the past doesn't mean they need to remain in perpetuity. So at the most, we should have a freeze, but I think if there was any justice, at the very minimum, at the maximum, a freeze, and certainly I think a decrease should be suggested. Secondly, looking through your presentation, especially some of the charts on page 10, I believe this is a very disingenuous presentation. For example, when you present your rate increase proposal information, you should include the fact, you should include New York State and New York City taxes alongside the water charges, so that the payments that we make are presented in the proper context. For example, for the record, I will turn your attention to page 10. And when we see that we pay less water charges than, for example, Seattle or Atlanta or Austin or Jacksonville, Florida, that's a disingenuous, non-transparent presentation because, for example, Florida and Texas have no state taxes or city taxes. And when you look at these charges in the proper context, they're completely disingenuous and unfair. I also wish that you would, thirdly, I wish that you would be more concerned with the message that we send when we tell New York City taxpayers and homeowners that when we use less water, which is the right thing for environmental mindfulness, we are penalized with higher rates. And that is just, it's unconscionable and just philosophically wrong. I'm sorry. Members of the board, I wish you would take a stand and actually require the water utility to, for example, strip out the padding that is no doubt in their numbers, which is in every utility's numbers. And for example, when they say that we have a capital expenditure project that's going to cost us $195 million, not take them at their word and say, well, why can't we get this done for $125 million? I'm sure we can do less with more. Oh, sorry, do more with less. And I think that in these years, when we are all being asked to do more with less, there's no reason why the water utilities shouldn't be asked to do the same. In closing, just to say, no increase. They've had their fun between the years of 2007 and 2013, and now it's over. We need to say enough. And one last comment, only just because I see I have 2 minutes left. I believe that we should institute a sub-metering or at the very minimum, a RUBS water billing system across the board in New York City. And if you're not familiar with what it is, I'll explain it very simply. Much like every resident in a multifamily unit pays their own electricity, the same should be done for water consumers. And I think the net effect would be a tremendous decrease in water consumption and wasted water use, because people don't value what they don't have to pay for. And if they were charged separately, if there were separate meters, for example, in a 3-family, a 5-family, or in a 12-family unit, if you installed 12 sub-meters, one for each apartment, then they would be responsible for those payments, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if suddenly water usage dropped dramatically, even as much as 30 or 50%. So that's it. Thank you very much for your time and for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levy. The next speaker on our list is Ann Renda.
Hi, I'm also a resident and so new to the whole concept of a water board. I'm retired, so now I have time for life and I read my mail more. And I'm thankful for your idea about the special metering for each apartment, because it's very true that if you're not paying, you don't care. And you just wastefully use water. My first comment to the water board and to the commissioner, I'm impressed. I'm really impressed. I didn't know you didn't get paid, and you're doing lots of great things. I'm amazed that you're sustainable, that you're actually using methane to run a building. That's awesome. I never would have expected that. So thank you very much for that, and hope you do more of it. And whoever had that idea is genius to me. My first question is, in walking around my Brooklyn streets, I see contractors pouring water out of the fire hydrants. Pouring, days. Nobody looking at it, the water's just going. Who's paying for that? Anybody tell me? Maybe not.
So, and you can stop there for I won't.
Thank you.
I won't take this out of your time.
Thank you.
Every contractor who uses hydrant water as part of a construction project is required to get a permit from us beforehand based on the amount of water that they expect to use during the construction process. And then they're required, as part of that permit, to pay us for that water use. If you see at a construction site a hydrant just running and it doesn't appear to be used to be mixing concrete or any of the normal construction uses, you should call 311 and we will send someone out, and if they're using the hydrant improperly, we'll give them a violation.
I want them to pay.
Yes, well that.
Can somebody design like a meter that they have to put on when they engage?
Well, we'll certainly look into that.
Thank you. Thank you. Good. And my second question is, I don't understand why you're paying rent to New York City as you do. I'm missing something. I've lived here all my life. I've lived in a house all my life. I thought New York City was New York City, so why would you pay rent to New York City if you are New York City?
the commissioner had mentioned as part of her presentation that there's been a financial structure in place since approximately 1985. There was a state law passed that created the Water Board, the Water Finance Authority, which is a separate legal entity whose sole purpose is to sell the bonds that pay for the capital investments that the commissioner highlighted. As part of that same state law, there was a lease created between the Water Board and the city that requires the Water Board to pay the city a rental payment. So it's at the discretion of the mayor, though, to ask for the rental payment to be paid. So as the commissioner highlighted, this mayor, for the first time, is giving a substantial amount of the rental payment back to the water system. And he is looking, as he has said publicly, to eventually turning back more, but doing it in a fiscally prudent way that doesn't create a $200 million hole in the rest of the city's budget.
Wow. I can't figure that one out, but I appreciate your trying to explain to me why. I have two more questions. The service line protection thing, that American Water Resources is making tons of money from consumers.
Yeah.
So they're making a huge profit. What are we getting back from giving them that opportunity?
If you think of the service protection program as any other, like when you buy an appliance and you sometimes elect to buy a maintenance plan or repair plan, or an insurance policy that you might buy, the benefit comes to those subscribers that when the need arises, if their service line breaks, that they don't have to pay between $5,000 and $15,000 to get it repaired. The service line protection program in American Water Resources arranges for that repair to be made at no additional cost above the premiums that the subscribers pay. So the benefit is to the subscribers, and we are able to offer this program, which is being offered in many cities throughout the country. We first learned of it about 5 years ago at a national water industry conference, and we decided to solicit proposals from a number of companies, and American Water Resources had the best proposal at the lowest price, and they were the most highly rated by the Better Business Bureau and by the customers in other cities who have been using their services for years.
I just think in a way that if you're giving so much business to someone that they should pay you back, but maybe not. Okay. I really agree with having citizens become more aware, as I'm becoming vaguely aware, and to become more active in water conservation. One of the things I think for myself is, as a child, part of our sidewalk in Queens, I guess the outer third was always grass, dirt, flowers, and that's huge for the conservation, that now it's all cement and it's causing water runoff and waste. That why can't we do something to revert back to using that section for absorbing water? Looks like a good idea. Yeah.
Okay, I'll answer that.
Thank you.
We are in the process of proposing and putting in place green infrastructure, which includes exactly what you're talking about throughout. Thank you. We are in the process of doing that. We are doing it at a small scale now because we're measuring how much water it detains, because that is part of our certifying that it's a useful thing for us to spend water board money on. We have to show that it works. We do hope to expand it rapidly throughout the city. We're talking to the City Planning Commission, Department of Transportation, Housing Development, about how we can incorporate it in all of their plans as well, because we think it's a great idea. We agree.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd be willing to do it myself because I think it makes the block prettier. I see these plastic permeable things in Norfolk, Virginia around trees. It would be perfect because I already started doing a little bit around my tree pit in the front. And it creates a little bit of problems with the dirt, and I'm worried about insurance if everybody trips. But I'd be thrilled to do it myself. I think maybe offer incentives for people to do it. And there are lots of things if people were aware they would do. Like my other thing, I'm on the third floor, so I know when I run hot water, that water's been in pipes for, what, 40, 50 feet? And I'm wasting all that water. So I'm thinking I'm going to get one of those things in place where a hot water heater in place for each one. And I'm figuring out how to do it, and plumbers aren't up to that. But if you could push that. Thank you. Thank you for all your great work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next on our list is Herschel Weiss.
Good afternoon, Madam Commissioner. Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Herschel Weiss. I'm a plumbing engineer with Ashokan Water Services. Ashokan provides water conservation studies and leak detection audits in New York City. I congratulate the Water Board on its pro-consumer and water conservation 2014 rate proposal. The freeze on the minimum water bill rewards owners who have reduced their water consumption below the daily consumption of 102 gallons. I also applaud the DEP's proposed water assisting program. It is a move in the right direction. Ashokan primarily represents large property owners that have problems with their water bills, including Stuytown, Columbia University, New York University, Rockefeller, Time Warner Center, etc., etc. But every day, Ashokan receives calls from small homeowners who are frustrated by high water bills. They're not very astute when it comes to this, and these property owners do not understand why the bills have spiked. They asked us to review their bills, to test their meters. They're sure that something is wrong besides a leak. They know there's no leak. The problem starts with the first or second high bill. The consumer assumes that it must be a mistake. It's got to be the DEP's problem. When it happens for the second, maybe the third time, they call the DEP, and they just rant that the meter is running fast. The DEP offers to send out an inspector or a DEP contractor who tells the homeowner that they have a leak. The homeowner then calls their plumber, who may or may not resolve the problem. We at Ashokan only get called in at a last resort when both the DEP and the local plumber have given up or not come up with an answer. Using leak detection and data analysis, Ashokan's almost always able to find the leak. Once the leak is found, we refer the customer to the appropriate contractor. Repairs may be anything from running toilet to a boiler replacement. In every case, months pass from the initial high bill till the repair. Once the repair is done, we monitor consumption using the DEP's AMR system, automatic meter reading. In many cases, though, the consumption reduced is still way above the acceptable rates. We then return, continue our leak detection. In almost every case, months pass from the initial high bill till the matter is resolved. Now, we may only be seeing the tough cases, but once the technical problems have been resolved, the customer calls us to ask about bill relief. They have just paid out a large amount of money to their plumber and now are overwhelmed by their inability to pay large bills. Most people in New York are living on a budget, expecting a water bill of a few $100s per quarter. When they're suddenly hit with a bill in the thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, they have no way of paying their bill. In most cases, they're forced to enter a long-term payment plan back with the DP. Back in the 1990s, we would recommend that these customers apply for the leak forgiveness program. The program would cut the spike in bill in half. It did not let the homeowners get off free, but did allow the DP to share the pain. It gave politicians a method to help out their constituents who suddenly found themselves in a difficult situation. Then a few years ago, the Water Board tightened up the guidelines of the program and restricted the leak forgiveness program to undetectable leaks. The justification being that the Water Board should not reward a consumer who did not maintain their property. As a result, most leak forgiveness program applications were rejected. Mayor Bill de Blasio seems to want to correct this anti-consumer move and has moved to reverse the undetectable, quote-unquote, requirement. On the surface, this seems like a move in the right direction. But the Water Board is proposing to restrict the timeline for a leak forgiveness application to 60 days from the leak and 90 days to get in your application from the last bill, as opposed to the current 18-month schedule. This would effectively eliminate the entire program. Almost no homeowner would realize they have a problem, find the leak, make the repair, gather the documents, and apply in 90 days. And even if they do, they're only going to get 3 months of relief, the last bill, as opposed to the current 18 months relief you're giving them. If the mayor, city council, water board, commissioner want to help out the New Yorkers, they should return the leak forgiveness to the old leak forgiveness guidelines, where a customer could get relief for any leak that happened in the past 18 months and for that entire period. The current language seems to promote a customer-friendly program, but in fact eliminates any relief. DEP officials have put forth the argument that the 90-day limit is reasonable, since New Yorkers can enroll in the leak forgiveness notification program. It's true. Unfortunately, homeowners only enroll in the leak detection program once they've had a leak and gone through the process. Thank you for your time, and I congratulate you all. I want one other thing. I congratulate you on moving up the MCP deadline to one date in 2016. Can I just, back when Commissioner Emily Lloyd announced moving it up in her last tenure, I asked her at that point, could we come out with a promotion that says we're serious? You've been talking about this since '96. When I tell my customers, we got to get meters in the building 2016, they say, Herschel, come on, you're just trying to sell us something. It's not going to happen. If you're serious about it, you got to come out and say so. I'm not asking you to change anything, just to get behind it. The other issue is the 5-cent parking lot fee was supposed to be a test program. Again, if you're serious about it, let's roll it out. If not, it's inequitable to ask parking lot owners to continue paying for something, for a test program that's not going anywhere. Thank you both. I really applaud all the decisions. Thank you.
Sarah, have we registered any more speakers? Having no more speakers for this part of the hearing, we want to move forward to adjourn the hearing. Before we conclude this hearing, I would like to reiterate that the written remarks can be submitted to the Water Board, care of Kevin Kunkel, 5917 Junction Boulevard, Flushing, New York, 11373. Since we have no further business, this hearing is adjourned. Thank you.